We're here at SuperInvestor Asia 2013. My name's Tony Gibson. I'm a partner of S.J. Berg, which is an international law firm with a particular strength in private equity fund formation. I head up the funds practice in Hong Kong. I'm speaking to Sebastiaan van der Berg, who is Managing Director and Head of Arbavest in Hong Kong. He has 13 years experience in the Asian marketplace, and we're here today to discuss his views in relation to the Asian marketplace. Sebastiaan, everybody talks about India and China as the two major investment areas, and there's a lot of focus on those two areas. What I would be interested in your view is the other areas in relation to Asia which are interesting for investors, and maybe the growth areas, the more emerging markets.
Well, it's a good question, Tony. We've definitely seen quite a bit of an uptick in terms of investor appetite for the regions outside of China and India. And I think that was expected given some of the fairly high pricing environment that we saw there. So one area where we're seeing certainly investor appetite increasing is in Southeast Asia. And I would say that it's particularly focused on both Indonesia as well as Malaysia, and perhaps to a lesser extent on Thailand and the Philippines as well. Singapore, of course, is part of Southeast Asia as well, although it's typically folded within the developed markets. And I think that is an interesting area. One of the nice things about that region is that you can actually do control investments. So whereas generally speaking in China and certainly also in India, the vast majority of the deals are in growth equity. In the Southeast Asia regions, given the slightly more relaxed regulatory environment, it's actually possible to do control deals and to buy 100% of a company. And so that clearly is attractive. That's attractive for the larger buyout funds that of course are now very busy and active in Asia. A number of those have raised substantial amounts of capital recently. And so for them to be able to deploy that, Southeast Asia has become a very attractive market.
Oh, excellent.
I would say that in addition to Southeast Asia, we actually see Australia as an interesting market within the Asia Pacific region. Clearly, it's a buyout market. It has the rule of law, it has transparency, and it has very deep and developed capital markets, which are all very conducive, of course, to a vibrant private equity environment as well.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned the rule of law and transparency. And I guess that leads me to think, is the interest in the other areas of Asia more a reticence with regard to China and India, with regard to the difficulty of doing investments in those particular jurisdictions? Or is it more because investors such as yourself want to move away from the herd and in doing so maximise returns and profits in those other areas?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. It's absolutely true that we're all looking for value investment opportunities, value plays. Given the valuations that we had seen historically in indeed China and India, that was difficult. And so you saw investors moving to other markets that had similar demographic characteristics, but had lower pricing levels. And that's one of the reasons why Southeast Asia became so attractive, because clearly it has very similar demographics with a large and increasing kind of middle class who are all looking now to buy schooling for their children, cars, housing, etc., etc. So that's an attractive market to play into. And certainly valuations were lower, but of course what's also happened, and this tends to happen quite quickly, once that capital is starting to flow in, you are now seeing immediately pricing levels to pick up as well. So we're following that very closely, and we're monitoring that closely. I will say though that it's still at reasonable levels. And again, given the fact that managers are generally able to also buy controlling stakes, and therefore have more control ultimately over their investment, we think that justifies a certain element of premium, like control premium, in the acquisition pricing.
No, absolutely. And I guess it's interesting, it would be interesting for me to get your views overall in relation to Asia. We're all seeing the figures, we're all seeing that private equity fund establishment is down in relation to 2011. 2012 wasn't necessarily a great year. People read into figures what they want, lies, damn lies and statistics. But essentially, do you see 2013 and investment in Asia as a downward trend, or do you feel that people are still interested in the marketplace?
Look, I think, needless to say, kind of the global macro developments had its impact on Asia private equity, and I think we all expected that to happen. So it was not a surprise that 2012, as you said, was generally down across the board and across the various metrics in terms of fundraising, investment activity, as well as liquidity events. However, I think overall we are seeing some positive underlying trends in the sense that we now see more buyouts. We're seeing secondary deals happen as well. We're also seeing public to privates actually happen, and even in China. And so we're seeing, I would say, the continuing development of the Asia private equity infrastructure, if you will, and becoming more similar to what we've seen in the US and Europe. So I think from that perspective, it's healthy. 2013, the way we look at it, will provide interesting opportunities. We are reasonably optimistic, although cautious as well. As we all know, it's never easy to make money, and you've got to be extremely careful where you invest and who you partner with. But I think that now that we have the political changeover in China behind us, that clearly has taken away a lot of the uncertainty with regards to that market. So we'll expect to see some pickup in that market for sure.
Sure. So your overall message would be that Asia continues to emerge both commercially, from a regulatory and tax position. There's still deals to be done. They are still relatively well priced, and Arbovest will still be putting its money into Asia in the near future.
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, Sebastiaan. It's very kind. Thank you.